Buckinghamshire. Controls, you know.
Give it a couple of minutes in case we got any last. Hello, come on in. Yeah, new signpost straight.
Or they need one TV all the way to it.
Yeah.
Everyone sees it, or nobody sees it. If some people use it,
Someone's about it.
Had some real estate taken off. Here I wanted to make sure they had a bigger office.
It's more cosy, shall we say.
Do we think that's all of us, Tracy? Oh, a couple more? Oh, best hat of the day. I think you need to be at the front camera.
Hello everyone.
Okay, it's 2 o'clock, so we will kick off. Hi everyone, thanks for coming along to the 4th show and tell for designing and building a website for the new Buckinghamshire Council. Has anyone been, I know a few faces, who's been to one of these show and tells before? Just a couple of people are new. Okay, so we'll do a very quick reminder of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So we're following an approach that's very user-centered, is probably the quickest way to say this. So we're designing something that's focused on the needs of our users, so citizens, people out there, folk out in Buckinghamshire, and making sure that everything we design and build is based on a really well understood user need, something that they're trying to do, and that we test everything we make with real people as well. So the way we do that, and we'll show you some examples of this as we go, is we do some research, we find something out, we build a thing. Even though it's quite rough and ready, we will take it out and we will put it in front of real people, get them to interact with it, ask them lots of questions, we'll learn, and that'll help us make the next version of this. And this is happening kind of constantly throughout the project. Show and tells are part of that way of working. So this is an opportunity for us to share where we're at, the work we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. We can share some of our thinking, so we can just be very open about where we're at, what's in our heads, get some input from colleagues, can tell us where maybe we've made a wrong assumption, or perhaps we've ignored something that's super important to somebody else that we need to kind of suddenly bring in and think about a bit more carefully. And so you can stop me as we go through with any questions or critique, or you can kind of catch us all at the end. We've got a bit of time for questions at the end of this as well, but we really would like your feedback, whether it's from what we show now or some of the stuff on the walls around us, some examples of the work that's been going on. Do take some time to let us know what you're thinking. So, last couple of weeks has been two things have been happening mainly. So, based on all the prototypes that you can kind of see on the walls around you, we have the colleagues, so Beth, Victoria, Nick, and colleagues over in Torchbox have been building out a real working piece of software, which is super exciting. So we've moved away from kind of things that look a bit like a working website but aren't really, to something that actually lives on the internet, has a real content management system behind it, and kind of is where we'll continue to build out this new service as we go. Alongside that work, we've also been taking a really really detailed look at part of what our colleagues in HR do. So we as a new organisation will need to help people find and apply for jobs, and this is something we're going to have a single way of doing in April. So it's one of our first services, I guess, that we're looking at from a kind of web perspective, where we'll be able to offer a kind of an end-to-end service that is just done one way for this one new organisation. You'll see when we show you some other things in a little bit that for a long time we'll have kind of 4, sometimes 5 ways of doing things as a new organisation. But jobs is a bit different. So we have spent the last week or so kind of really focusing in on what we might need to do to help people kind of find jobs with the new organisation. Colleagues have been doing some work with libraries to try and look at some of the content there and start writing some words for the new website so that we can help people do things like find and borrow books, get access to some of the other materials and services that colleagues in libraries provide, and have something ready, ready for when we go live with this new website that presents a new service. And we've also been kind of taking this little roadshow out to some other places as well. So we've been spending time with colleagues in various kind of unitary programme meetings and boards. We've been spending time with some of our senior counsellors as well to make sure that they can see some really early versions of this. It's important that people can give us a kind of a point of view and a steer when it's still possible to change things, rather than kind of wait until the end with a big release and have any scary moments. So lots and lots of updating. This is part of that, so this is an opportunity if you see something to share with colleagues, let people know. We'll send slides around afterwards so you can do that. So to jump in a little bit more detail, on find and apply for a job. So we're going to talk a bit about the way we've done this. We've kind of done an accelerated process here because we have not a lot of time before April. So we did something that's called a design sprint, something that Google kind of have written about. There's a fab book called Sprint. We can, again, share some links afterwards if you're interested. But it takes the kind of design process and it basically squishes it into a week. We went a little bit further, which kind of squished it into about 3 days. So we had 3 days with the design team and colleagues from HR, from the county and the district councils, basically locked in a room together, where on the first day we looked at all of our existing job sites and tried to understand kind of how they're designed, how they currently work, what the processes behind kind of the HR service look like, and what we know about the experience of some of our users from feedback that we get into the service, from people's kind of perceptions in the team about how well or not things work today. We thought about the types of people who might be looking for jobs and developed what we call personas. These are just little descriptions really of the types of people who might have different job-seeking behaviours. So whether maybe that's an apprentice kind of looking for a first opportunity, or a kind of career mover who's looking for something very specific, or maybe somebody who's motivated more by wanting to move to the area and is perhaps has a slightly different way of kind of coming at a job search. And what this does is help us think about some of the different things that might be important to different types of people, so we can think about how the design might solve the problem for all of them. We take all of this and we kind of sketched up some of our ideas. Again, we're not ashamed of copying and stealing things here, so we had a good look around some other job sites that we like, both across the public and the private sector, looked at how others had solved this problem, looked at how job hunting works on mobile devices as well. So we see a lot of people are going to be doing searching kind of at home, maybe on a commute, and so the experience that somebody would have on a mobile phone might be quite different to a traditional kind of jobs board page on a website. And so with all this, we've got colleagues doing some actual drawing. Always makes people a little bit nervous, but it's great fun if you can do it. Sit down, draw screens, interactions, and just use these as ways, and you can see them on the walls kind of behind colleagues over here, just some of the ideas about how sites do work or might work, so that we could start to flesh out a little bit about what's important to people. So with this, we took that away and we turned some of these sketches and ideas on the second day into a prototype, so a pretend website basically, something that makes it a little higher fidelity and is something that we can get people to interact with as well. So although it doesn't work perfectly as a website, I'll give you a quick demonstration of this. It does let us have a little bit of a look at how finding and applying for a job might work in the real world. So just give this a little second to load itself up. So I'm stretching a machine here. We're trying to kind of live broadcast to YouTube, record everything, and run software at the same time. We're somewhat stretching the capabilities of this poor little device. Here we go. So this is our first prototype. So it's covered in stock imagery. It's got some slightly odd language on there where we've not had the time to really thoroughly think about saying exactly the right thing in all the right places. But what we've tried to do is present quite a kind of clean design, something that's quite simple. From some of the kind of experience we'd had from other sites was we needed perhaps to get to the point a little bit quicker sometimes about, we know why people are here, they're trying to find a job, so let's give them some quick ways to do that. So obviously search quite important, we've heard from people, and also kind of highlighting under here a way to see all of the jobs. And we're thinking about how we show people the types of areas that we might have jobs in, and this is a real live conversation at the moment. We're not sure, just being very honest, whether this is something where we show clusters of jobs in categories, or might we use space like this on a homepage for a job site to try and promote hard to fill roles. Like, what is the purpose of this? What are we trying to tell people live under here? So different users, when we tested it, had very different understanding about what this might be. So there's a bit of work still to do on this. Also important to tell people why they should work here. So, why come to Buckinghamshire? Why not Hertfordshire or Oxfordshire, just over the road, who might be recruiting for very similar roles? So we need to try and describe the benefits of working both in local government, but specifically here in Buckinghamshire. What is it about the area that we think might attract people in? And then, to be honest, it's going to be all the kinds of things you'd expect to see on a jobs page, hopefully. Again, we've tried to focus on keeping this quite simple. We've copied design patterns from Gov.uk, from NHS Jobs, from DFE Jobs, Teaching Vacancies website. Like, a lot of people are looking at this at the moment, so we've got some really interesting learning. The beauty of people doing things like we're doing today, broadcasting things live, sharing slide decks with everybody, means it's out there on the internet and we can see the work that others have done. We can pick that up, take it, reuse it, and kind of move stuff forwards. So filtering, lists of jobs, and then ways to go through to some of the detail pages. And again, trying to keep it really simple, explain the job, and be really clear about how people start an application. And then probably the most technically tricky bit of what we will need to build here is having an application process that starts here. This actually integrates with a back office HR system. So there's a bunch of work to do to make sure that when somebody submits an application here, it scoots off into the back office HR system and does all the things they need to do. And similarly, when new jobs are created and posted, we're just automatically going to be pulling those through from an HR system. We're not going to need HR colleagues to kind of also publish things here. So there's some integrations we have to figure out. Colleagues on the technical side of the team will be looking at what's possible in here, what new or different features we might or might not be able to build. So based on all of this kind of design thinking at the moment, we're going to now have to look at, well, what can we realistically do, both with the technology but also the time and the budget that we've got available to solve this particular problem. But we feel like we've got a really good jumping in point to hopefully give quite a simple find and apply for a job service. So real focus of the last kind of week or so, this one. Just jump us back into the deck. So once we've got a working prototype, as I mentioned earlier, the most important thing we then do with it is not just kind of sit back and be happy with what we've sat down and designed together in a room. The trick now is to put it in front of real people and see how they get on with it. So we did that. On the third day, we spent a whole day testing with colleagues in the organisation who are job hunters, people who might be looking for roles from across district and county, and let them interact with the prototype. We had a kind of a user research framework, so we had some questions, a bit of a discussion guide to kind of lead them through. So we asked them to try and complete some tasks like finding a role or finding out about benefits. And to do a few things here, we were observing the way that they interacted with the site. So did they click on the things we thought they might click on? If they did, was what they expected to happen what actually happened? And if not, why not? It gives a chance to really kind of dig in and understand how people think about doing these things. It gives us a chance to understand a little bit more about kind of job-seeking behaviour generally as well, so that we can take some of that insight and build it into the designs. Really detailed, specific feedback. We got loads of it. So through five half-hour, 40-minute interviews, we've got tons and tons of observations about what people did and didn't do, things that we thought were different to what we expected, and that's going to feed through into the next set of designs. The little picture on the side there, just in chatting about the day on Twitter, letting colleagues know what we're up to. We immediately got folks who are working at DFE, at NHS and some other places who have just immediately reached out and said, that's really interesting, we've been doing some stuff, we'd love to share what we found with you. So that's one of the next things we'll do as well, is pick up a conversation with some of the names you can see on the slides here, so that we can just make sure we're not trying to redo work that others have done. And as well look at things that maybe are different. Some of these are kind of central government organisations, potentially quite different sets of needs, different types of users. So, we don't want to just copy designs wholesale necessarily. We need to test that they work here in our circumstances, with our technology, with our ways of working. And then we're gonna iterate over everything. So we're gonna keep making changes, test with users, make some changes, test with users, and start building it into the new website as that all comes together as well. So really good, solid kind of 3 days worth of work, loads still to do, and expose some interesting questions as well for the HR service about how they're planning to kind of run this new recruitment organisation as well. So trying to make sure we're thinking about both the organisation design, the design of the service at the same time as the supporting technology. It's always a bit of a challenge when we're kind of rushing for deadlines, but it's important we do that. I'm going to hand over to Phil now to talk about the fact that we've got some actual working software.
Yeah, so I can actually, I thought I'd show you what we've been doing. So in the last 2 weeks, in the last sprint, we've been working on building out the site so that we can experience the actual journey we're going to have from through the content journey, from homepage through to an information page, and then linking off into other areas. So that core content journey. If we have to leave these slides. So we now have a working website. So it's a working responsive website built on Wagtail CMS. We've been building this with a pattern library approach. So what we see here, I can show you is, in the background, this is how we build our website. So we build it from a visual perspective using different levels of components. So we started off with the smallest elements, or atoms as we call them here, build them out into molecules, components, and so on and so forth. And this is really helpful for us for consistency. You'll be able to reuse components over and over again into the future. It's more efficient for us to build because we can just keep using those, reconfiguring the small components to create nice consistent experience for the user. And also it's much more maintainable for you. If you want to make any changes, you only have to make them in one place, and it's replicated across the site. So that's our pattern library. Happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk to me about that after this as well in any more detail. We've been building out this website. We're just focusing on the core journey, as I say. There's a lot of the prototype that's still not in here yet, but we've only been working on this for about seven working days recently, so far this sprint. So we have a homepage, as you can see here, and we can edit this page. So we can go into the Wagtail CMS, which is this, and come in here and edit this page. We've got at the moment we've simply got the tagline and the hero image. All the links that are on that front page are automatically generated based on the site structure. So there's no content management needed on this page to manage that content. Is automatically generated. But we can come in here, we can perhaps choose different imagery to use, and publish that, so we can go in and see that change. Well, I hope we aren't running too many things on this.
Stressing the internet out here.
This is where I've probably just picked exactly the same image again, haven't I? In theory, it's that simple to change an image anyway. But we can also change the order of these things. So one of the things I think we're looking at in user testing around content is what is the right order to show this content in. If you just simply put it in alphabetical order, for example, that may not be what's most useful for the user. So we can come in here and actually change that order very easily. So we can, this is again, well, I'm hoping. So let's assume that schools and libraries, we want to be our first item in that content list, we can create that very simply by if we can find schools. Here it is. I can bring that up to the top and change that. And now schools is our first item. So we can just very easily, if we're finding, based on the analytics or any information coming through, we can change the order of that content that quickly. Now drilling down into this, we have, you can see here index pages and the information pages behind it. So your index pages are your content areas, and we're also displaying the top 3 information pages underneath that. So if we select one of those, I showed you one which is actually filled out. There we go. So this has got some of the content in here already, and we highlight the top 3 items, just like on the home page. We can reorder those, and it works on the same principle. The top 3 are highlighted, and the others are listed underneath. And here we could add a new page, so let's quickly do that. Which one are we doing? We're doing parking, aren't we? So coming in here, all we do is add a child page, information page, and we can title that as it's the show and tell today. I'll share it quickly, too quickly. Oh, so I've created 2 components. There we go. That's why I delete that. And already up and running, we have that content page. Filling into there, we have our content page. We'll come into it. We can add any components in there we like. So at the moment, we've got just some simple components to get content into the site. Starting off with, we've already seen a paragraph. I just put content in here. We can change that. Content. We can edit that. Perhaps we want to put a new heading in and put some sections within this page, so we can create our heading underneath. So sub-heading. We can reorder that, and maybe put some more copy in. Also with this site, we're acknowledging the fact we're going to be linking out to the existing district sites as well. So one of the components we've created, as you've probably seen on the prototype, is a component to link out to the relevant district sites. So that's a component we've built as well, which is a list of links. We've got some stock copy in there, so introductory and postscript copy to keep these items consistent, but that copy is also editable on a global level. But here we can add in all our the links we need, and because I'm unimaginative, I'm going to be putting BBC into every single one of these. And now we can publish, assuming I've not made any mistakes. Publish that page. We now have a working content page with links out to all those different sites, developed sites on these pages. That's a quick whistle tour. The only other thing that is nice to see working, it's not styled up yet, but we have actually already got the search working here. So let's see if we can find the page we just created. Of course we can't, but we can find. There we go. So we can actually straight away, we're already drilling down into pages that we've previously created, and this will be styled up and doing more with the search over the coming couple of sprints. I think that's me. Amazing.
Thank you. Okay, we're nearly there, folks. Thank you. So yeah, really, really exciting to see kind of real working software. Only a few weeks into the project, which is fab, and very brave of Phil to demo actual live software in front of people at the internet as well. So thank you. So we've shown you the thing. So next things we're doing. So obviously we're just about to come up to kind of Christmas, which slightly plays with our schedule a little bit. I think our next show and tell was supposed to be Boxing Day, but I think I might be the only one here for that. So we'll keep working, but people are obviously on holidays, so we'll be probably mostly picking up bits and pieces as more as individuals rather than a team over this next little bit. We've got loads of stuff to keep doing on the content side of things and figuring out some of the other navigation elements as well. We've got some more detailed work to do, looking at how we handle stuff around contacts, complaints, freedom of information requests. Again, those are some of the areas where we know we have particular systems we might want to interact with. Which just increases some of the technical questions we have to ask now to make sure we can get that right and spot any issues with that as early as possible. So our next show and tell is going to be on the 9th of January, so we'll have probably a bit of a chunk of work to kind of talk to you all about before then. But that's pretty much, I think, all from us. Over to you, really, if there are any questions, anything we haven't covered or we might have talked about previously, but if you weren't here, you might not know what we're up to. Go for it.
With the top 3 links, is that based on what we've decided are the top 3 or what people are interested in, what they're clicking on at that time?
So it's manually selectable at the moment,
Yeah.
but if you were to, you could do review your analytics and then change those as you need
but
to.
not automate it.
It's not automated based on clicks at the moment. I think you probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's important. It's not necessarily automated quite that easy, because it might be just because there's a volume may not be the same as importance, so we've got to make sure that's done correctly.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bit of sometimes things are a really big organisational priority that kind of have to find their way up for good reasons, and so yeah, it's a bit of a combination. But we've been trying to look at all the analytics from our existing sites to take a good first guess at, well, based on what we know today about how people are currently using our sites, what do we think would be in those top sets of boxes. The next interesting things to find out is whether people actually kind of go for those immediately. As I said before, user behaviour is always interesting, so they might not quite do what we thought they would do. Sure, the way some...
So things like school admissions and things
Yes.
that we know in council tax would just
Definitely, yeah. So I think organisationally as a team, this is something all of the web teams across all the councils do already, which is we have stuff that's very seasonal, and we know that would be need to given a certain prominence, and that kind of comes into the work plans. But yeah, that will definitely need to be a feature of this, so that we don't. Otherwise, you just feel it somewhere else. It will come through in phone calls or people turning up at the front door instead. So hopefully we can head some of that on.
The recruitment.
Oh,
sorry. Obviously, the recruitment stuff looks really good. You concentrated note on the inbound, so people coming into the site. Has there been any discussion about external email marketing potential?
Not specifically external email marketing, but we know colleagues are very keen to kind of think about how we do some of that campaign-based stuff and how we kind of reach out proactively. We know a lot of stuff comes through some of our social media channels as well. Those are used quite a bit in some of our recruitment work. So we're trying to keep the team really focused at the moment on, we have a thing to build to list jobs on the website that people can easily search for, find and make an application. So we're trying to keep ourselves boxed into that for now. But yes, the rest of the service needs to be thought about when we've got a working
The reason I ask is that we're in the comms group, we're talking about the digital marketing sort of things, outbound email. We want to make sure that we're plugged in with what you're doing. So of course, need another conversation offline just to make sure we're on the same page as you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So we're not at the moment building anything to capture people's emails for doing outbound marketing. So yeah, we need to have a chat about how people are seeing it working. Loads of fun data protection and all sorts of questions to figure out in amongst all of that, as well as the software that we might use to run some of that stuff. But yeah, definitely something to pick up.
So you talked a little bit at the start about you be writing content for libraries,
Yes.
new content.
Yes.
Could you just elaborate a little bit on that and then how that would work later down the line when you're going to be writing new content for other areas, what we need to do in relation to that?
Yep. So short version is the colleagues from the team, or the kind of the broader website team, met with colleagues in the library, so I'm looking this way, so we're colleagues in the libraries. We sat down, we ran a bit of a workshop to try and understand what we knew about the current user needs for people who visit the library site. We dug into all the analytics to try and look at what some of the more typical user journeys were. So kind of mapped out a good understanding of what the library service is, what it does, and then what people's kind of needs and expectations are of that. So kind of came at it from two directions. What the team have done is broken that into what we call user stories. An example of one of those might be, as a fan of Poldark, I want the next book in the series so that I can find out what happened to Ross and Demelza, isn't it? So that's a nice, discrete, biteable chunk of user story. We've got a really clear need there. And so then what we do, the content design team have then been looking at, well, how do we turn that into something that lives on the web? So we need some information that tells people probably where their library is, what it offers, when it's open, probably links off to things like the library catalogue, information about how you make a loan, maybe start getting an application if you're not already a library member. So there's a set of things that you would need to have existing to help somebody complete that user journey, that user story. And so that's the approach they take, and then they build out and write blocks of content. And the writing process is one of the service subject matter experts tell us legal information, what service does, factually, what's accurate. Content designer writes that in a way that works on the web, and between them there's a process of agreeing kind of what the right thing is to get published, and that goes up onto the website. We still need to do some work to figure out how that sits, how many pages, what the design of those pages are. All of that is still in play, but the work to write the actual words is kind of ongoing. So we'll have some agreed content, and that's the process we'll probably use for pretty much every service as it finds its way over. So
when a list of what services you're going to do in what order.
We do, yes. It's there. And we also have it on a Trello board, which is like a project management tool. So we've got a list of what we're doing. So basically we've chunked it into things we're going to do in time for the very first live version of the site, which is basically stuff between now and probably February. Things that we'll do February to kind of April time, and then everything else is in the we will do it after that category, and we won't give you any dates because stuff will change inevitably. Things as we move through this program, we'll realise some things have more or less importance than others, and it's a constant conversation about relative priority. The important thing to note is everything will have a signpost from the new website. So although we might not have redesigned the content and brought it into the new world, it will still exist somewhere, and we will have a way of somebody finding it on the new website and being linked off to it, whether that's on an old district or a county site in the short term. So nobody will be left stranded. We'll always make sure somebody gets to where they need to be. But what we're not doing is just taking old content and just shoving it across to the new site. Everything will go through a process of research and design before it gets published. And that hopefully will be the pattern that the team then continue to follow for the rest of time, which will be lovely.
Will the new site have attachments like the current site does?
Links into what I was about to say,
Okay.
because you mentioned your content
Yes.
strategy, and I was like, is that public? Can we see it?
So I'd like to say no. So attachments are problematic for lots of reasons. The main one is we have any of our users who have different access needs, so maybe visual impairment, cognitive impairment. One of the things that is hardest to make work consistently for everyone are attached documents. Because if the document hasn't been designed very specifically in a way that makes it work for people with different access needs, then it could cause some problems. So a straightforward example would be if you've not structured a document well, a PDF document for example, it won't work well in a screen reader, and someone with a visual impairment won't be able to understand what's in that document. So the easiest way to avoid that is to publish it as structured content on the internet. We have a process for doing that. That means everything that gets published onto the new website is accessible and will work. There are ways of making documents accessible, but the document creator has to do the hard work to make that happen. What we can't do is just have documents flying into a small design web team to then make everything become accessible. It's a huge amount of work to do. So it really depends is probably the honest answer right now. We will try and discourage it as much as possible and for as long as possible. We need to do some work to look at how we give people good options for publishing other types of content online. It's not fair for me to just say, no, you can't have your policy document on here. We need to think about, well, okay, if we want that as structured kind of online content, how do we create some templates that help people put things like important strategy and policy documents up online so that they're accessible and also help people communicate stuff that's important. So yeah, expect some pushback in the early days, certainly while we've
Already
been
are.
quite good already are. Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's for good reasons though. It's because we have lots of users who have different needs for whom these documents simply do not work. So we just can't have that as the only way we're communicating this
So is there any
information.
support from the team with services that are actually designing documents that
Yeah.
usually would be uploaded as PDFs on the current website? So is there somebody that we can link in with?
Yeah, so we're doing some work with colleagues in the communications team who produce a lot of this content, these documents. So we're going to be sitting down with them soon to do some very specific kind of training work to look at creating accessible documents. But in the meantime, we've got some kind of guidance documents that we can help people with. Colleagues in the various web teams can give advice. I know Chiltern and Sandbox have got some really good information they've created. There's a bit of a live conversation looking at Sam. We've kind of been chatting about this on the outskirts. There's work happening in all the councils at the moment to look at accessibility online. Anyway, so we've got quite a bit of information between us. I think it's a matter of helping people create stuff that works. Hello.
So, is that why we're not showing the image on the logo as well? Is that just because we can't use it yet?
It's just not up there yet. Here we go.
I know we're not going to be using.
That's all right. I'll show you the prototype.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it just hasn't yet quite made its way onto the live site. So this is the prototype, not a real website. So you can see the logo is up there, looking lovely, and that kind of follows through on all of the pages. So yeah, it's there. So we've got kind of special permission at the moment to be using the new branding. So we have to design with it. So we've got it on the prototypes, we've got it on the demo site, we'll be using it in testing with users. That's a very small subset of people. We're not going to be communicating this out to residents in a big way yet. That won't start until January. But yeah, there it is. Okay. No, great. We're going to hang around for a bit, so if you want to have a chat, we'll be here. Pick up any questions. Otherwise, yeah, just grab us if there's anything else. Let me know if there's anyone who wants to see the slides or kind of have any. Come along to the next show and tell. Everybody's welcome. Thank you.